Hello and welcome to another episode of Visa Vibes. I'm Emily Newman. I'm the managing partner of Reddy Newman Brown PC, one of Houston's largest immigration law firms. And with me today is my partner, Stephen Brown. Together we've been helping businesses, professionals, employees, and their families navigate the complexities of the U.S. employment-based immigration system. Stephen, what are we going to be talking about today?
Yeah, Emily, it's that time of year. Everybody's asking questions already. The H-1B visa lottery, it is starting. We're onboarding on our end, talking with companies, and that process is about to start. So we're going to talk today about kind of the history of the H-1B lottery, how it works, recent trends, and some of the changes that started last year and are coming again this year.
Yeah, so every year thousands of foreign professionals are going through this process, hoping for one of these limited visa slots, but there's been record high filings every year. So, people might be wondering, how can I improve my chances? Are there anything we can do? What does this process look like? It's a very stressful and anxious time for the employees as well as the employers, because they don't know whether they're going to be able to oftentimes continue to employ someone after their current visa status expires. So we're going to break all of that down and go through some of the common myths that we hear about the H-1B lottery process. So first up, what is the H-1B lottery? Why is there a lottery?
Yeah.
What's the background of this?
So, the H-1B is one of the most popular employment-based categories. Why? It's not country of origin, specific, like the TN or E visas. And it's open to really anybody who has a bachelor's degree, because the position, H-1B position, is a position that requires a degree in a specific field. So it's a lot more open compared to like an L1, a TN, an O, and it's oversubscribed. And that's why we have a lottery. The Immigration and Nationality Act says that they have to process these in the order in which they're received. And that's impossible, right? When we talk about hundreds of thousands of people doing it. So they've come up with a lottery. So, the H-1B visa, Emily, was originally created in 1999 with the Immigration Act of 1999, where they separated out the H-1 visa into multiple categories. H-1B, H-1, C, H-3, H-2B, all that. And it allows U.S. employers to hire foreign professionals in a specialty occupation that requires that degree in a specific field. And the original cap, 65,000, was there, but there's been a lot of changes over the years since 1999, right?
Yeah, and really it was 1990.
Excuse me, 1990.
You missed a decade there. So yeah, from 1990, it was set at 65,000 visas are available every year. But in 1998, Congress decided that we need more visas. We have the .com, bubble, I guess, starting out. And so we need more tech workers. We need people to fill these jobs. We need to be on top of this in the United States. So the American Competitiveness and Workforce Improvement Act, that we commonly referred to as ACWIA, in 1998 actually increased the cap from 65,000 to 115,000 just for a 3-year period, 98, 99, and 2000. And then in 2000, Congress went even further because they wanted us to be competitive. And in the American Competitiveness in the 21st Century Act, we call AC-21, it raised the cap even further. So we went from 65,000 to 115,000 up to 195,000 for another 3 years. AC-21 had a lot of benefits in it. It created the extension beyond the 6-year limit. It created portability for H-1Bs, and it increased the cap to 195,000. But it sunset. 2003 was the last year. It was at 195,000. Then we dropped back down to 65,000 for fiscal year 2004, which started in October 2003. And so during those pre-2000s years, when we had a lot of visas, the cap was never reached. Never a problem, never an issue with supply. No lotteries ever happened. And then same thing in 2000 to 2003, we had that super high cap of 195,000, so the demand never exceeded that supply. But when we dropped back down to the 65,000 for fiscal year 2004, The cap opens October 1st, 2003. We can file as early as April 1st, 2003. And in that year, we could file from April all the way past October when the fiscal year started, all the way into February. So in February 2004, for the first time ever, we ran out of H-1B visas before the fiscal year ended. So that was the first time that happened. That was in fiscal year 2004. And because that happened, it led Congress to create the first of many band-aids that it makes in immigration, and that was the master's cap. So before this, there was no separation of bachelor's and master's, just 65,000 visas. Cap gets reached. Master's applicants who have a U.S. master's degree didn't make it in the H-1B cap, and Congress said, well, we've got to fix this. We've trained these people here. Yeah. They have a U.S. master's. We should be able to take advantage of their skills and keep them here. So we're going to create an exemption for 20,000 U.S. master's degree holders to be able to be exempt from the cap. So it basically increases the cap from 65,000 to 85,000. So the next year rolls around, and the cap was reached for the first time on October 1st. Like, the fiscal year had literally just started, and the visas ran out that same day. The next year it gets even worse. Now we have the master's cap, so the regular cap got reached in August of that year, but the master's cap remained available until the following January. So that 20,000 visas went a long way, still was not enough to make it to the actual through the entire fiscal year. Then the next year, regular cap ended in May. Master's cap was reached in July. We're getting a shorter and shorter window. And then all of a sudden, fiscal year 2008, the cap was reached on April 2nd, 2007, the very first day of filing. They received more than 85,000. Well, what do we do with all of these extra ones? It's like, before that, when we had a window, they would tell us every week how many petitions were received each week, how much room we had left, and so the filings would increase and increase as you got closer, and then they would just say, okay, on X date we received enough. Anything received after that date were rejected. There's no lottery. But then when on the very first day they received more than 85,000, they can't say that we're going to stop it on the next day because they received too many. So that's the first time they conducted a lottery, and it was completely random. It is not based on anything. And the only difference was master's cap versus regular or bachelor's cap, but they don't do any kind of vetting. The way they do their vetting is after they approve 85,000 H-1Bs, they might go back and revoke some, or some might get a request for evidence and then ultimately get denied. Well, where do those extra numbers, how do we get to 85,000 if we don't know how many are ultimately going to be approved versus revoked or denied? They actually select more than 85,000 so that when they're done adjudicating them all, they actually end up with 85,000 valid approvals. And that's kind of how it's been. And so we start this process of every time on April 1st. Well, now, what happens if you tried to file on April 1st and your package gets delayed? Like, a lot of people had FedEx that had problems. USPS couldn't get it there on time because there's this huge volume of filings all going to the same place. Well, they changed the regulation to make the filing window 5 days. Great, now we have 5 days to get it there, and everything that gets received during that 5-day window gets included in the cap. So that happened in 2009. And then we had the Great Recession in 2010, 2011, 2013. Yeah, so we didn't really reach the cap in those years. Then 2014 rolls around, job market starts picking up again. We start reaching the cap in those first 5 business days of April every year from 2014 through 2020. And when we're filing these cases in the cap, we're filing a full petition, full filing fees, all supporting documents, just for half of them to not get selected and be returned. It was very dejecting. Right. As an attorney, you're just waiting for these cases. You've done all this work for like the entire month of March, and you know half of it is useless. So they did add a fix. So what was that?
Yeah, so I remember, those old days, we wouldn't even get the receipt notices, and we'd get rejected and be like, oh, guess this one, wasn't selected. But, companies are putting forward a lot of effort, right? They're putting together all the evidence that needs to be, have the checks done, the signatures, the whole petition for nothing. And so it was, I think 2019, the regulation was finalized and they said, hey, we'll do it for the next year, the 2020, March 2020 FY 2021 lottery. They create this electronic registration system. Great. Like USCIS finally getting into the 20th century, not the 21st yet, but the 20th, right? We're going to do this system where a 2-week period in March, employers can get on either on their own or through an attorney, and they do this electronic registration process. And instead of full petitions, it is very basic information about the company, contact information, FEIN, and the account number, really. And then for the employee, very basic information about them, their passport information, name, date of birth, gender, country of nationality, country of citizenship, and then yes or no, whether they have a U.S. master's degree. And at that time, it was a $10 per individual registration fee. Companies pay it. USCIS gives that 2-week period. They run the random lottery just based off of that. Everybody gets assigned a number. They run the lottery and then let you know who's selected. Then you have, 90 days to file the petition between April 1st and June 30th. And we've had that system in place since March 2020, fiscal year 2021. We're now into fiscal year 2025. And it is more efficient. There's been some problems, right? We know that there's been allegations of fraud. These companies work together and say, hey, Emily, I'm going to register my 10. You want to register my 10 for me too? I'll register your 20 people. And we'll just kind of swap back and forth. Actually in one of the years, we had over 780,000 registrations. 780,000. And USCIS is like, we have to do something. There's too much, what USCIS uses fraud, people gaming the system. And it really does create an unfair advantage, right? Companies that are doing things the wrong way are getting a better chance because, hey, I've got this, I've got that, and we'll just keep running it. So USCIS switched, and for the first time last year, fiscal year 2025, in March 2024, they switched to this beneficiary-centric model. And what that did is instead of, hey, I've got 5 job offers, now I get 5 chances in the lottery, so I got 5 and 85,000 chance, whatever, right? The odds are of getting selected. Now, no matter how many job offers you have, you only get 1 shot in the lottery. And they'll let, the companies know, hey, this individual is selected, and the companies can file a petition because, look, there is legitimate chances people have multiple job offers. We talk about, I use the hypothetical, an engineer from MIT might have a job offer from Meta and Facebook, Meta, Twitter, Amazon, whatever. And that's great. We want that, but that wasn't what was happening. It was a lot of shadiness going around. So we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So you can still have your multiple legitimate job offers, but you're not going to game the system by putting them in 5 or 6 times. So now each beneficiary only gets 1. So anybody who's telling you, hey, I'm going to get you into the lottery again, they're full of it. They don't know, what they're talking about. So that's where we are today with the H-1B lottery. We still have the 85,000 visas. That has not gone up, even though the demand is obviously there. And we've got dates for this year, right?
Yeah. So this year, March 7th through the 24th is when the window opens. So employers and their attorneys can enter all of the names that they want to submit in the lottery. It's pretty much the same as last year in terms of the electronic process, the data that attorneys have to enter, the data the employers have to enter. The employee is still not involved in any way in that process. I guess for employers that have multiple people they want to register, there's some option to upload a spreadsheet with the information instead of having to literally hand type everything like we did last year. So maybe that's a plus. We'll have to see how it actually works out this year. But otherwise, it's the same. It's the attorney enters the information, then the employer logs in, they accept the information, then the attorney logs back in and pays the fee. Oh, but the fee is different this year. So this year it's $215 for every registration, whereas in the prior years it was only $10. Now, what the heck is USCIS doing with all of this money when the system is already built and they're not actually doing anything to improve it from year to year?
I have no idea. It's been one of the questions, because when USCIS collects fees, it is supposed to go for the benefits, right, that are being adjudicated. Now we have the asylum fee that they went through a regulatory process on, but gosh, that's a lot of money. Even in the $10 fees, you think back, what was it, FY 2024 with 780,000 registrations times 10. It's a lot of money just going into USCIS's system to run a program that's already done and print out, upload some notices. And now it's going to be $215. Again, maybe their thought is we're going to lower the number. Less people are going to be inclined to register. That's a 20 and a half time increase on the fee, but still, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. All right. So now we're going to go into some kind of common questions, common myths and misconceptions about this whole lottery and the H-1Bs. So with this new process, if I submit multiple registrations with multiple employers, say I'm an employee, I'm on my OPT STEM extension, I've tried to make it through the lottery for the past 3 years. I hear all the time, this is my last chance.
Yep.
My OPT's expiring this year. Can I submit my registration or have multiple employers submit my registration? And if I do, does it actually help me with better chances?
Yeah, it certainly doesn't increase your odds, right? I mean, look, if you've got legitimate job offers, there's nothing wrong with having the multiple registrations anymore, but it doesn't give you any benefit in the lottery like it used to. That's what changed with this beneficiary-centric process. Now, you only get one entry. So if you've got 1,000 employers, right, you used to get 1,000 entries into the lottery, and now you've greatly increased your odds. And look, there were bad companies out there, Emily. They'd say, hey, pay me some money and I'll put your name in. And USCIS wanted to get rid of that. So now, again, you have those 1,000 job offers. You're the best person ever, and you've got 1,000 job offers. You're still only going to get one entry into the lottery, and all of those companies are going to be notified, hey, this case has been selected. You want to file the petition during the window. So no benefit to it at all.
All right. Now, let's say I am selected. Does that mean my visa's are automatically approved? Do I have to go through a process after that? Is there any kind of vetting that happens for the lottery?
No, this is a common misconception that, USCIS took in 780,000 people in the lottery, so they approved 780,000. No, it is just how many people entered the lottery, and then they select. And yes, they select more than the 85,000 because they know the statistics show X percent are going to get denied, X percent aren't going to be filed, X percent are going to be withdrawn, and we want to hit the 85,000. But no, you getting that selection means nothing. You could get, going back to our first episode, the 7-Eleven clerk, you can do a lottery for that 7-Eleven clerk. That's not going to result in an H-1B petition being approved, but it gives you the opportunity to apply. And that's all the lottery does, is let you know who can apply. USCIS still is going to require you to go through and submit the labor condition application with Department of Labor, submit the I-129, submit evidence that the position is a specialty occupation, submit evidence that you qualify before they approve it. So, no, it doesn't do anything. And it also, by the way, doesn't change your cap gap. We get that all the time. Like, I got selected, I got cap gap. For those of you that don't know, when you have OPT or STEM OPT, that expires, now it's in April, right? You can get an automatic extension by filing the petition. But the selection in the lottery does nothing other than say you can now apply.
Yeah. And the selection in the lottery also does not allow you to move it to a different employer if things don't work out with the employer that you were selected with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You can't just say, I got it selected, but company is not going to file for me. So Emily, will you? No, it's got to be Emily that did it. Emily, one of the things we get, going back to the old days on this, when the INA was kind of, hey, you got to do things in the order, is the lottery first come, first serve. Like, if I'm not on and putting in my information at noon Eastern time on day one, am I out of luck?
Thankfully, no. So that is how it used to be, that you had to file early in the cap season because we never knew when it was going to end and the visas would run out. That all changed when they went to the 5 business day plan, where anybody, regardless if you filed on April 1st or April 5th, they were all included. So it's kind of the same thing now with the electronic registration. So whether your name is submitted on March 7th at noon Eastern time, or on March 24th at 11:59 a.m. Eastern time, don't wait till noon because it'll be too late. You have the exact same chances of being selected. Everybody goes into 2 big hats, the one for the 20,000 masters people and one for the 65,000 regular people. But regardless of when you're submitted, as long as it's any time within the filing window, you have an equal chance of being selected.
And a little peek behind the curtain here for the folks listening. I mean, I never started on the first day. You'd be surprised. A government system that's been around for a few years always has its glitches. And the way the system is eventually it'll glitch and you just have to restart the whole process. So I always tell, I think it's opening on a Thursday this year, if I'm remembering the calendar right. I'll probably start on that Monday once everybody's sent all their emails to the listserv saying, oh my gosh, it fell through. So
yeah, that's exactly my plan. I told everybody I'm not starting until March 10th.
So just if your company is saying, hey, we're going to give it a couple days, don't stress, because that's how I always do it. That's how Emily does it. There's always glitches. It's not worth doing it that first day.
All right. How about, I know I need to be submitted into the lottery this year. I have this company, the friend of a friend, they're willing to do it, but they don't really have a job offer for me. Is it okay? Can I still be submitted in the lottery and get the job offer later?
I don't think so at all. I mean, even though there's no vetting, that doesn't mean there's not vetting on the back end. And if you file the petition and it looks speculative, and look, we saw, especially with 2024, fiscal year 2024, they did a lot of investigation into these speculative registrations. You have to have a job offer, not just, I picked you out of the room, we're going to do your registration. So, no, you need a real job offer, and you can't self-register. I can't just say, I'm going to do it, on my own now.
Can you, though?
What about the whole thing, the H-1B regulation that came out, Emily, with beneficiaries owning a business? Now, can that new business, I own a business, Stephen Brown Inc., can Stephen Brown Inc. sponsor my H-1B?
I think potentially yes. One of the things with this new regulation, it has to be a specialty occupation, so you've got to be spending at least 51% of your time doing specialty occupation work, not running the business. But it also has to be a bona fide job offer, which of course is not defined. We don't have any guidance on that, but it needs to be a legitimate business. So Stephen Brown Inc. can't incorporate tomorrow, get the FEIN next week, have zero plans, no bank account, no website, no idea of what he's going to do, but say, you know what, I'm going to be an attorney for my own law firm, but I haven't done anything, and I'm going to enter myself in the lottery, and I'll start the business if I get selected and filed. Probably not going to work. But if you're maybe in one of those other visa categories where entrepreneurship is allowed, like on OPT, you were doing, you did your master's degree, you've decided on this really cool business idea. Now that you're on OPT, you can be self-employed, and you started up this business a year ago. It's really taken off, and it's in line with your degree. It's a specialty occupation, and you have a legitimate need, the business is up and running. I think you could do it. Now, this will be the first time we've ever tested this theory, but in theory, it should be possible if you've got a legitimate business and job offer.
Agreed.
All right, go ahead.
Premium processing. Myths all around that.
Yeah.
Can I premium process the registration so I can guarantee a selection?
No. So the registration process doesn't have a premium processing option. It is just that 2-week window, and everybody finds out usually around March 31st, April 1st. Now, of course, some companies or attorneys take longer to notify the employees than others, but in the last couple of years during this electronic process, we generally find out around March 31st, April 1st, who all's been selected, and it's over by that point, even though USCIS takes another week to announce that they finished the process. But there is no premium for that part of the process. Now, once you're selected, the petition, you have the option of filing it in premium or regular, unless USCIS suspends premium
Yeah,
processing.
did that before.
Which they have done before. They did it under the previous Trump administration. So that's a possibility. But even if you do premium processing and get your approval in early, it doesn't give you any advantage because the visa still doesn't start till October 1st. So there's not necessarily a huge need for premium processing for those that are selected in the lottery unless, number one, you just really, really, really want to have it done and know that you're set, or you're getting close to October 1st and it's still not adjudicated, then maybe you could upgrade to premium. But there's not a ton of reason where you have to do premium processing.
Yeah, and I think with the new cap gap regulation, it's even less necessary. You know, in the past, cap gap ended on September 30th, hard cut. And so if you got to September 15th, I want to not lose work authorization. Well, now with cap gap going to April 1st and they're saying, hey, 98% of cases get done by then, I think we'll see less need for premium.
Yeah. All right. Another myth. If I don't get selected, I have no other options. Are there other options?
I feel like, and you mentioned this earlier, we get this all the time. We're in my STEM OPT phase and this is my last chance, Emily. Well, first off, you can always apply for the lottery. You don't have to be on OPT, but there's other options. And we always talk about this after H-1B cap season because only about 20 to 25% the last few years get selected, if not lower in some years. But, if you're on only your initial OPT, you still have the STEM extension. You can look at cap exempt H-1Bs, whether it's a university, a nonprofit research institution, a government agency, stuff like that allows you to do a cap exempt. There's other visa categories, E-visas, Ls, O1s, TNs, depending on if you qualify. And for some people, obviously not everybody, and obviously everybody's kind of backlogged, green card options, if that it could be, you could transition right to a green card. So there's plenty of options. I know it's, disheartening not getting selected, but there's still options out there.
All right. How about having that U.S. master's degree? So this was created as a Band-Aid because the cap was running out, the 65,000, and instead of increasing the cap, they just said, we're going to exempt 20,000 U.S. master's holders. So does that mean if I have a U.S. master's degree, I am guaranteed to get an H-1B visa?
No. And now I will say one of the things, and I'm not even going to pretend to understand the statistics, but during the Trump administration, they switched how the lottery was run, and somehow statistically, the way it's run now is they run the master's cap first, right? So everybody that's filed with the U.S. master's degree or higher, and then if those aren't selected, they get put into the general cap. And it used to be reversed, right? And somehow this has increased things statistically for more U.S. masters being selected. But it doesn't, we're only talking about 20,000 extra. So you do get 2 bites of the apple, but it doesn't guarantee anything at all, whether selection or approval. Emily, and we brushed this earlier, I get selected. I even get an approval. Can I just work for any employer at all? I go around, I got an H-1B visa. Can I?
No, the H-1B is employer specific, so you can only work for the employer that has sponsored your visa. Now, if you get the visa approved and actually begin your H-1B status, you can later transfer to another employer, but that employer has to file an H-1B transfer petition before you can join that company. So it is somewhat portable thanks to the American Competitiveness in the 21st Century Act, but the CAP petition itself, the CAP selection notice is not portable, and the CAP approval is not portable unless you've actually transitioned to H-1B status. You got the change of status approved and it took effect, or you got the visa stamp at the consulate. So common issue, people get the consular processing H-1B approval notice with no I-94 on it and ask, can I switch employers? And the answer is no. You've not technically been counted in the cap yet. All right, last myth. What if my H-1B gets denied? I can never apply again. Is that right?
No. So the denial in and of itself does not bar you from applying. Now, there are ways, if you've committed immigration fraud that might jeopardize things. But, maybe your case got denied. It's not a specialty occupation. Or maybe the documents just don't show that you're qualified to do the job you're being sponsored for. And sometimes they get finicky about that, right? that doesn't bar you from applying. You can apply again next year. You could potentially appeal. You can litigate the denial depending on the reason, but there's certainly nothing that says you can't apply next year. There is a box on the I-129 that says you've received a denial for that classification before. You have to disclose it, but we saw a lot of denials 2017, 2018, and people run through the lottery again. That had no negative impact on their future at all. You got to go through the lottery again, and that's difficult, but nothing preventative. Emily, we've talked about this. It's a giant mess.
Yeah,
Has there
are
been
we really choosing the best and brightest through a random lottery?
Right? I mean, there's been some attempts to fix things. Redoing this on a wage, I call it a power ranking, right? The Trump administration had proposed, I think they even finalized a rule that was going to basically give more weight to higher salaries, higher wage levels. And there's some problems with that. Smaller companies, rural companies and all that. But that tried to go through, and it was a final rule. And then, Chad Wolf didn't have the authority to do anything. What other fixes have there been?
There's been talk about making the system more merit-based, and so maybe we should allocate visas based on degree level. PhDs get first crack at it, and then masters, U.S. masters, and then bachelors, or, going from there. And that has its pros and cons as well, because if we're going based on U.S. PhDs, well, not all U.S. PhDs are weighted the same.
Yep.
Or just because you got a PhD, if you get a PhD from Harvard, great, but there are other schools not on that level who will issue PhDs. There's so-called diploma mills. And so should those people really be ranked at the same level and have the same access to the H-1B visas as someone who went to Harvard, for example? So with all of these, it makes sense what we're trying to do is we want the best and brightest to have the best chance. But if there's no vetting that happens to verify this is a good university, or to verify if we're going by wage level, who's going to confirm that this person is actually going to get this salary? What's stopping the person from on October 1st transferring to another company and going to the low salary?
Yeah.
No one's ever checking if they actually receive that high salary. So the real fix, I think, is increasing the cap. Has to be done by Congress.
Yep.
Do we think Congress is in any way going to do that?
No, and that's what I was going to say. I mean, these regulatory fixes, I think, also have to go through Congress, because the INA says H-1Bs in the order in which they're filed that are cap subject. But I don't know. I have not gotten a good sense from the 119th Congress, the current one, that they're going to do anything immigration. I mean, we're talking about, we got the Laken Riley Act through, and that was even met with some issues. Voting wise, are they going to do anything that reforms this? Are they going to scale it back? I just, for years we have seen less dysfunctional Congresses try to tackle high skilled immigration, whether it's green cards, H-1Bs, whatever, to no avail. I don't know if the 119th is the one that's going to do it. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah. This problem has been 20 years in the making. And I do not have high hopes that anyone is planning to fix it in the near future. But we hope that you found this episode informative and gives you kind of more of the background of why the heck is there a lottery in the first place, how it works. And we hope that you will subscribe to our podcast. We're on YouTube, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And so that way you'll be notified when we post. We post every Tuesday is our plan. Every week we'll have a new topic, and if you have suggestions for topics, please reach out. We're on social media. We'd be happy to hear from you, and we hope that you've enjoyed this.
Thanks, y'all.